Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and start thanking people now. Maybe by the end of it, I'll remember everybody I forget. So we'd like to thank Chapin News for helping us put this on. We thank them. We definitely want to thank Woolbright Flowers and Gifts for donating the nice centerpieces we have. And we want to thank everybody on the committee. And that's listed on the back, but basically Nick Haralambus, Coach Kent Honey, Stan Sheely, Michael Swindell, Jeffrey Tucker, Keith Wicker, Brian Cowsert, and AJ Peoples. We definitely want to thank that because it took a lot of effort from a lot of them to get this pulled together. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to recognize last year's class for those people that are still here. That are here today. So, Coach Muldrow, Coach Eddie Muldrow from last year's class, W.F. Sullivan is here, Jeffrey Tucker is here, Miss Jimmy Roof, Mr. Sonny Sheely, Marty Woolbright, and Mr. Isaiah Hipp are all made the return trip to this current Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Well, the Hall of Fame started last year, this being our second class. And when this thing got together, it really just started as kind of an idea. I'd heard the idea of a Hall of Fame started for several years. So really it was myself and Justin Cannon. We decided one day, how can we get this started? How can we get recognition for some folks? And I have to give credit where it's due. We started tossing around the idea through social media, and all of a sudden Coach Justin Gentry, the current head football coach at Chapin High School, reached out to us and said, guys, we need to make this happen. We need to make this not only happen, we need to make it special. So we got with Coach Gentry, and through a series of meetings, we decided we would come together with a committee. And there was a lot of rough goings at first on how are we going to finance this thing? How are we going to be able to put together a banquet like this and get some great food like folks like Zorba's are going to serve you tonight? And finally, we were able to get together with what I thought was a great class last year, a great 10-person first class, where we sold out the Chapin Town Hall. Now this year, things came together again. We happened to have some difficulties at the very beginning. We lost one of our committee members, which we'll speak about a little bit later. But we were able to come together. We were not only able to come together as a committee, but also as a town to bring this together. As a community like Chapin always has done so many times before, and bring this Hall of Fame and all of you here together tonight. We did it through such events as having an alumni football game. The alumni football game, it was flag football. We weren't in shoulder pads or helmets or anything, so none of us 50-year-olds are out there banging around with each other. But we had 45 to 50 different alumni from as old as 52, 53 years old, as young as 18, 19 years of age that went out there and met at the old Chapin High School football field, sharing stories, talking about those heartbreaking losses, maybe those great wins and those fantastic plays. And it was a great coming together moment. And it's something that we're going to do again in the future to bring more alumni together with having other alumni events, basketball, baseball, soccer. We're going to do it for everyone and recognize everyone. And this year is a little bit different than last year because we're going to start recognizing 2 different state championship teams each year, which we will do with the 73 girls basketball state championship team and the 82 baseball state championship team. So the way things are progressing, they're progressing really nice with this Hall of Fame. And we want to continue to get the support of the community, continue to get support from all of y'all, because this does not come together if it's not for the love of Chapin. We have the young football players out here who, I didn't know if I'd make it out here today because I didn't think that game was ever going to end. So I thought I was going to be running late, but they played their hearts out today, and this is what it's all about. It's bridging the generation gap. Chapin has grown so much over the last 40, 50 years. We started off as a little single-A school that at one time actually had to fill the football team with Irmo, the Dutchman. The Chapin Irmo Dutchman is actually a football team together. And now at this day, we're a thriving school that next year will be in Class 4A in the South Carolina High School League for the first time in school history. That's how much we've grown. and we're going to continue to grow. And it's important as we have new people coming into the Chapin area to not let them forget about our past, and that's what we're doing here tonight. And with that said, I would like to bring on Principal Dr. Ross of Chapin High School.
Well, it is, I'd like to say first, welcome home. This is, I know it looks a little different if you haven't been to Chapin High School in a little bit, but this is your home. We have added on, obviously, to the 75-acre campus, and to include new fields and roadways, and actually the instructional site has been transformed to a tune of 400,000 square feet that has been renovated or had new additions to it to make the complex that we have today. We are now able to go up to 1,700 students, and as was said, this being our last year of 3A will allow us to go up to, if need be, to 5A. But I think what's special about our community is that we keep it close-knit. It always seems small. It seems like a family. And it is a family because of what you have started. And our kids today pay homage to you and the legacy that you created. So this is very important. So as I leave you, I would say, no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth who they should be. Know all the books on all the shelves. It's who the people are themselves. And you are an amazing group. You started a legacy, a tradition of excellence that has started since 1924. And as we look to expand this, we thank you for your sacrifice, your hard work, and your love of the Chapin Eagles. So with that, let's salute our love for our great nation as we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as we welcome everyone here, or we welcome everyone home, we want to go ahead and say a word of prayer before we dismiss everyone to eat the Zorba's buffet dinner. And with that, I'll bring on the Honorable Stan Shealy.
That's as opposed to ornery. May we pray. Father God, we come to you this evening thankful for all things and in celebration. We celebrate not only the athletic accomplishments of those we honor tonight, but we celebrate also their lives, which they have led, for the role models they have been and continue to be, not only for their peers, but for the entire community. We thank you for them, Lord, and we ask that you will continue to show them your grace and your encouragement. And now we ask that you bless the food that is set before us and those who have prepared it. Bless these gifts to nourish our bodies and us to your service. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, it's time to eat, and I understand if we file out the back door here and go through the buffet line and come back through this door. And we'll start with the honorees first, if you'll let them go, and then everybody file after them.
All right, everybody will turn the program to kind of flip to the inside cover there. Michael Epting passed away this past February, and he was a very big part of us getting involved and getting organized and getting last year's class together, and he was obviously going to be a big part of this year's class. And Michael Epting was a very passionate person, and he really set an example for everybody. And what we're hoping to do at some point, we're getting there, but we're going to have like a Michael Epting Spirit Scholarship that we'll award once we get to that point financially. So I'd also, since he's not here, I'd also like to take just a minute And if everybody would just basically have a moment of silence for all the people that should be here today. Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we're going to start the ceremony. This year, did I sound all I wanted to see if you were all still awake. As part of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, like I said at the very beginning, this is the first year we're going to start recognizing different state championship teams that Chapin has had. And of course, Chapin has had many of them throughout all sorts of sports, almost about every single one that we've had at Chapin High School. But the first one this year that we're going to talk about, that's going to be the 1973 girls basketball team state champions, who won it here in this arena. This used to be the basketball arena where they got to play, and obviously this has now been turned into this. But we've got the new arena on the other side of the school. Be sure to check out. But in order to talk about them, we want to bring out Coach W.F. Sullivan.
First thing I want to say about the 1973 Girls State Championship, and y'all find this probably hard to believe, these girls averaged 80 points a game before Christmas, and then for the whole season, they averaged over 70 points a game. And we didn't have anybody probably over, as a starter, probably over 5'7" or 5'8", and we're playing a lot of 6-foot people and all that. The key to it was you could call a practice anytime you want to, and they were there. They were hard workers, and they were fast. And they were little, and if you put that ball on the floor and it came up more than 2.5 feet up, it was going the other way. That's just the way it was. Half of our points was on layups off the 43 press. But these girls were, I'm telling you, it was the best time of my life. And they started out, let's see, half of them were probably on the JV team, first year I was here. And the JV team was 13-1. And the varsity team was 19-4, they had half of them. And they came up together, the JV team and the varsity, for 2 years. Now the combined record for those 3 years was 64-7 with the girls. And I just want to tell y'all, it was good times. I was at Lexington for 2 years, and when I came over here, Coach Cecil Wilbright was the coach, and let me tell you, he was like a father to me. And then I had these girls, but I will tell y'all this one story. The first year I came over here, the first day I came over here, Coach Wilbright introduced me to the girls. Well, y'all know Coach Wilbright was their coach the year before. And y'all know Coach Cecil Wilbright. Everybody, he's the man. So when I walked in and he introduced me to Pam and everybody, they were out there shooting basketball on the floor. And when they introduced, it was at the old gym up there. And you all seen those girls. I felt icicles in the air. They didn't want anything to do with me. And I said, this is not good. But anyway, it ended up, we did a lot of good things and we just had a good time. And what I'd like to do is introduce the starting five first, and I hope the rest of them won't get upset by me doing that. I call them the Big Five. Now, Vita Shealy was here about a week or two ago, and she's out west, and she couldn't come back this soon, and I understand that. And hey girl, that's all she ever said. She worried the fool out of this girl. But I would like for the girls to come and line up here, and I'll start with Miss. I'm so used to introducing football players. Okay. Miss Pam, I'm going to name their maiden names. I don't even know some of them who they married. Pam Boston. Since I'm going to be talking about her in detail later on, I won't say much about her right now. But y'all better look at this girl. Next, I would like to, she was number 43, and Penny Boston, her sister. And I would never forget Penny's number because that was my brother's number in college, 41. And those two girls right there scored 3,483 points at Chapin High School. I didn't name Vita Shealy. She was number 40. She was a senior. Penny was the only one of the starting five that was a junior. And then we have Donna Addy. Now, they should have arrested this girl and the next couple of girls coming up here, and I'll tell you why. Because they stole so many basketballs and made it in the goal. Something should have been done about it. But Betty Casson, number 4. Now, when you put them with Vita, this was the starting five. We ran the 43 press, and we played, y'all know Batesburg Leeds was loaded with talent. They played Batesburg Leeds one night, and they never got the ball. Past half court during the first half. We had to take it off because it was 39-2, and I think they would have killed all of us. Then when they had that press going. Then we have Linda Shealy, which is number 10. Linda was our sixth girl. You notice how tall Linda is, what you think about? And Judy Lemon, number 14. And I'm telling you one thing, if you want some rebounds, there's the girl right there. Judy Lemon, number 14. Super. And then the other good rebounder is Stephanie Mann, number 50. Now, Stephanie was a young freshman on this.
Not anymore.
She said not anymore. And Susan Shealy, number 31. Susan was a sophomore, and Susan was a good forward. Never did play a center, but she played forward, and every now and then she would play a guard. But she was a good dribbler and all that. And we have some other people that probably, she'll say, probably shot the ball a little better, but she was a great rebounder and played good defense. That's what I'm saying. Brenda Jones. Brenda Jones, number 15. I'm telling you what, the good thing about Brenda, the good thing about Carol coming up next, we got 10 girls here tonight. We could send them into the game and we would not lose any points, and that's important. If you got in foul trouble, they could keep everything going until people got back in there. And that's what you got to have on the team. They were juniors, but they were real good. And the next person is Carol Summer. Carol Summer was number 20. And like I said, she and Brenda, they were getting their guards. And they knew the press. We pressed everybody. Now I think the boys will have a fit, but guess who? The first team to score 100 points in this gym right here. We scored 103 one night, and they played 2.5 quarters. We would have scored 170 points that night. We played a team called Hollywood, and I'll never forget, there was a lot of grandmothers and grandfathers from Hollywood coming up and telling me what they thought of me. But I don't care. We're the same. But these are the girls, and let me me just tell you all this. I can just remember games like McCormick. Y'all know they had those half moon goals, and they always dangerous. And they jumped on us 8-0. So I called timeout and looked at them. They had that little gleam in their eyes, so I didn't worry about it. And they went back out there, and all of a sudden, the 16-8 Chapin. And then McCormick calls timeout, and then we come over there and celebrate a little bit. But, we had some games like that, and I want to tell y'all in the state championship game now. We went over to the Coliseum, and I'll never forget, I was looking at our girls. Y'all look at them. Y'all see anybody 6'8" over here? And Rain Seminary, it was a starting 5. 5'10", 5'11", 6'1", 6'2". And then I said, well, thank God, just 6'2". And then the 6'4" girl dumped her head and came out. But let me tell you, they were 27-0, and we were 24-1 at the time. And so I looked out there on the floor. We started the game. In 11 seconds, I called timeout. You know what I told the girls? The state championship is ours tonight. They're running a stupid man-to-man. And I said, we run the shuffle, we'll never get off the second option. How many layups we get that night? Ungodly. Beat them 50-33. Those big girls couldn't handle us man-to-man. That was if they had run a 2-1-2, they'd probably beat us 110. Well, they would have got 90 rebounds and stuck it back in. You know. But they ran a man-to-man and we ate them alive, and I appreciate that. I told the coach after the game, I appreciate you running man-to-man. He says, I've run it for 27 games. I said, well, the 28th game didn't work out. But I want to tell y'all, I love these girls. I'll never forget them. They gave me one of the best years, well, the best 3 years of my life with the girls. They would do anything, and I tell you what, they would beat anybody nowadays. I know you find it hard to believe, but they would. They would. Integrity and everything, they're the best.
Much more blood and guts.
They want y'all to make sure you take a picture at the end. And each one of y'all hand each one of y'all. This roof is the 2 separate pictures or just one?
It's one. It's 2 pictures, don't they?
We can do it now, yeah.
No, I mean, whatever you want to do. No, you go ahead. You do it when you want. Well, I'm going to sit down. All right, girls, come in and sign this paper.
As Coach Sullivan mentioned, this used to be the gymnasium. And I remember coming here as a freshman, you could look at all the state title banners that would hang from the ceiling. And I was always impressed about the 82, 83, and 84 consecutive baseball championships. And with that being said, we're going to let Coach Randy Cooper come up and talk about his 82 state title team.
Hey, what an honor it is to be here back home. I want to echo what Dr. Ross said about a community makes a school and a community makes a program. Athletics, academics, all the way around. And without a doubt, Chapin has a great community. Couldn't have been any prouder of the parents that were behind the baseball program. Without a doubt, they led us and they did a lot of things. I remember when I was a young 23-year-old graduate of the Citadel, coming up here, W.C. Hawkins, who was the old superintendent, his son was my roommate on the baseball team at the Citadel. So when I got here, one of the things they said is, be careful what you say, because everybody's kin. They're either a Wessing, a Sheely, a Slice, an Amy, a Williams, a Mayers, a Bowers. And that's exactly the truth. But that's the old community that supports this school. And I'm very proud to be back here and talking about this 82 team. When you talk about where you come from, you go back to your roots. And one of the things I'll go back to is I played for a Hall of Fame baseball coach at the Citadel named Chapin, who took the Citadel to the College World Series. I learned a system about baseball from him, and I carried it here. I'll also talk about the tree that he built. Many of you know the University of Louisville is now in the ACC. They won the ACC championship last year. They've been to the College World Series 3 times in the last 7 years. Their head coach played for me at the Citadel. The coach at the University of Indiana is a Citadel grad, played baseball at the Citadel. So that tree is there and that system works. What I want to talk about is these guys here. You know, I always say that, you got to be very smart and academic to play baseball. And the reason is, it's a slow game. You need a long attention span to stay into it. So I always tell them the smarter guys play baseball. It's a mental game. And one of the things that I used to talk to them about and instill in them was mental mistakes. Don't make mental mistakes. We would play a game that we were going to make errors, physical errors. We were going to strike out. We were going to misplay balls. We were going to throw away. But the one thing we couldn't do was make a mental mistake. And we would have what I called the pride drill. And the pride drill was after every game, I would have a list of how many mental mistakes we made during the game. And when I'm talking about a mental mistake, who missed a sign? Who didn't back up a throw? The little things that wouldn't allow the other teams to take an extra base, and we would do a little pride drill. And I'd stand in center field, get them on one of the foul poles, have them jog to me, and then sprint to the end. Well, the more mental mistakes they did, the more they ran. Pretty soon they got it figured out. They became pretty smart. So we went through all that. Pride drill, mental mistakes. We also had another drill called the rat race. And I'd stand on the pitcher's mound and put a runner on every base and a runner in between every base. I'd blow the whistle. If they got caught, they had to run again. If they caught somebody, they could stop. Well, that helped us on base running, and it also made them understand they needed to stride out who was fast, and they'd look and pick, and that made them even smarter. Some of the things we want to talk about in the 1982 team starts really in 1980. 1980, I heard about a young group of 8th graders that were playing in the 13 and 14-year-old league. And this was in the summer. I went down and saw them play. And I went, wow, they got some pretty ones coming. They were going to be in the 9th grade the next year. So in 1981, there were 9 freshmen that I ended up keeping and working with. And 1981, we started out 2-6, and it was a struggle. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb started coming up, and they started playing. And that young team made the playoffs, went to Blue Ridge, and we lost the first 2 playoff games in 1981 up at Blue Ridge. We finished 12-10. 1982's coming. We had 4 seniors, 3 juniors, and 7 sophomores. Very young team. We made the playoffs the year before, and there wasn't a whole lot expected out of us. So we go through the season, we win the conference. They made me think about a game, the game we clinched the conference here. My bright idea, I wanted to motivate them. I had some T-shirts printed, and the T-shirts were already printed up and said, "Conference Champions." I told them to wear them underneath their uniforms. If we win that game, we would have been conference champions, and we could peel them off after the game. I said, if we don't win this game, we're going to burn those T-shirts. So we go through 3rd inning, 4th inning. We don't have a hit. We're behind. Finally goes on. Well, the other team booted it around a little bit. We never did get a hit, but we won. Now, how do you win when the other team pitches a no-hitter? They beat themselves. And that's baseball. The game of baseball is so hard to play, you've got to not beat yourself. And that's mentally and physically, always being in the right place. And this team did that. So we made the playoffs, they ripped off those shirts, and we had a picture made, and they were all happy. Then the playoffs started. And in South Carolina, there was a team in 2A baseball called Bamberg Earhart. Bamberg Earhart was the baseball program in South Carolina. So we go to the playoffs, we win our district. And in the upper state, we're playing Timmonsville. Now, how is Timmonsville in the upper state? I don't know, but they were in the upper state. So we hosted them here first. And I can remember when their team got off the bus, the first guy off the bus goes, "Wow, this place is major league." And it is. And that's a testament to the Chapin School District for the facilities you have here. It kind of intimidated them when they walked out on the field. We won 11-1 in 5 innings. Had to play them the best 2 out of 3, so we had to go to Timmonsville for the second game of the upper state. They beat us down there 5-3. Probably one of the only dirt infields we played on all year. I don't make excuses, we just didn't play well. So we have to play a third and deciding game for the upper state championship, and we go to Hillcrest and Dazzle, halfway there, between Timmonsville and Chapin. We beat them 13-1, 5-inning game. So here we are, the next round in the state championship, we're playing Bamberg Earhart, the team in South Carolina. Not only South Carolina, in the nation. Bamberg Earhart had won 8 straight state championships, and they were going for a national record 9th in 1982. So we traveled to Bamberg for the first game, and I'm all, ESPN, a very fledgling network, called and wanted to do an interview, and I don't know, we never did hook up. But then some of the papers called, and one of the things that I said was, well, we're not the ones going for a national record. All the pressure's on Bamberg Earhart. They're the ones that are supposed to win. We're not. We're just happy to be here. So we go down to Bamberg, and there's always that apprehension. Can we play with these guys? We walk on the field, and out on the outfield is a baseball with a state championship, 1974, 1975, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. And here we are. 7 sophomores, 4 seniors, and 3 juniors. So we go down there. And the score's 3-1 in about the 5th or 6th inning. There's probably 1,500 people there. They want to see the big Bamberg set a national record. So it's 3-1 in the 5th inning. We have runners in first and second with 1 out. Jonathan Gamble hits one in the gap. It's going to be a double. Runner on second scores. The runner on first stops at third. We would have had runners at second and third, 1 out. Score would have been 3-2. The umpire said, first runner missed third base, he's out. I'm coaching third. I know he touched it, So that went against us. Next batter, we popped up. Bamberg wins the first game 3-1. Okay? We get back on the bus to go back home. One of the things I told him, I said, I don't think there's any difference in talent. We're as good as they are. I said, next time we got them at home. Charlie Williams pitched game 1. He lost. Johnny, his brother, was going to pitch game 2. I made those two sit beside each other on the way home and talk about each batter. So game 2 here at Chapin, we had about 1,500 people here. We won 3-1. So it's tied up 2-2. Neutral field, we go to Orangeburg. Old Mermo Field, old minor league park, we go down there. Jimmy Roof told me, she said there was over 2,000 people there at the gate. And we laughed about it. Well, the funniest story was, this is how much confidence the school had in us. They booked all the activity buses. They gave us the oldest one. We broke down on the way. So we're broke down on the side of Interstate 26, and here comes Eddie Muldrow and Jimmy Roof. I start putting players in the car. Get them down there. Get them down to the field. We got down there. We didn't even get to take batting practice. Didn't have to get, hardly took time to warm up. Game started. They jumped on us quick. 4-1, going into the 6th inning. Bamberg's up, 4-1. And I'll remember this to the day I die. Whole dive walked. Joe Shelby got a base hit. Brent Timmons is up next. Brent, they knew, runners at first and second, no outs, we were going to bunt them over. We bunted. Their pitcher came running down to third base line, picked the ball up, threw it in the right field corner. Both runners scored. Brent ended up on third base. It's now 4-3, no outs, tying runs at third. And who got that hit? We tied it up in the 6th. Brent scored, and I can remember him high stepping. You know, we tied it up. So the game is tied. The game is tied after 7. The game is tied after 8. The game is tied after 9. The game is tied after 10. We go to the 11th inning. Charlie Williams is still pitching all the way. So in the 11th inning, we had we broke it open. We scored 5 runs in the 11th to go ahead 9-4. You think Bamberg's going to go down easy? They've won it 8 years in a row. First thing they do, they get their first 2 runners on. The next guy hits a double off the wall. It's 9-6. They got a runner at second, still no outs. Charlie's gone 11 innings. I go out walking out there. I said, Charlie, what you think? Coach, I got him. I got him. I'd had Billy Amick warming up and Brian Cowsett since about the 4th inning. They've been pitched the whole game in the bullpen. Charlie said, I got him. I said, okay, Charlie. Next 3 batters, he got out. Popped up to first, ended it. We won the state championship, ended the national record, and that was our start of ours. You know, I'll say this. You know, you talk about Hall of Fames, and I'm not, talking about the team. Team has good individuals too. I'll give you a little stat for the Hall of Fame. Next couple of years here, Charlie Williams was 29-6 as a pitcher, 3 years. He won 2 state championships. His record were 9-2, 11-3, and 9-1. 29-6. And he always faced the best competition. You always wanted your best pitcher on the mound. He faced the best. Funny thing about Charlie and Johnny, I remember when they were young, they were playing in the black leagues against men. They were playing against adults in the summer. And I'd go over and watch them play and go, man, these guys are going to be pretty good. But they were playing men. But as a whole, those 3 years, we finished 73-12. And one of the biggest things they like to talk about is they beat Irmo too. They like to talk about that. I'll also say this: we played Union, who won the 4A Upper State Championship. We beat them twice. So a couple of years we could have played with any classification, and that's a testament to them. Now, what I want to do is bring them up and let's talk about each one of them a little bit. Brent Timmons was a senior catcher in 1982. Brent was the leadoff batter. He was a spark plug. When you got a catcher that's got everything in front of him, and he's a spark, and he keeps everybody in check, and he's always in the game, that's one you wanted. Brent Timmons did a great job as a catcher. Other senior was Johnny Williams. Johnny was a pitcher and a center fielder. He and Charlie one would pitch and one would play center, and they'd go back and forth. Other senior was Keith Cruz. Keith couldn't be here. Keith was a shortstop, and then Quentin Broom couldn't be here either. Then we had 3 juniors. Joe Shelby. I like to tell this story about Joe. Joe was a great athlete. He played everything. And Joe hadn't played baseball since he was 12. And I kind of put my eyeball on him and I said, you know, you need to come out for baseball. Joe said, I don't know, I kind of challenged him. I said, well, Joe, you know what? You're a jack of all trades, but you're a master of none. and he took that challenge and he became a great baseball player. He, I guess his senior year, you hit 430. I think that's what it was. And I was higher than that. You know. Then the other junior was Charlie Williams. Charlie was a junior in '82, 29-6, and he played center field and pitched. Then we had Billy Amon, and Billy played first base, DH, and pitched. And probably Billy's senior year, he became quite a pitcher. We kept messing with a little flip change up, and by his senior year, Billy was 8-1. His senior year as a pitcher, and as a DH, he was all conference. As a DH, Billy could hit a lot of line drives in the gap. He had to hit them in the gap because he didn't run real fast. Okay, and then the 7 sophomores on the '82 team. First one is Paul Dye. Paul was the third baseman. Played third base for 3 years. He looks like he can still play. Randy Coker. Randy Coker played outfield on the '82 team, and then he moved to catcher for '83 and '84. Scott Wessanger. Scott was a center fielder. Scott played a lot of backup on this team, and then '83 and '84 he started both years in center field. Greg Sheely. I told you that's Sheely. Greg was a second baseman. Played second base for '84 team. Brian Cowser. I left Brian for last, and there's a reason. Brian went to the Citadel on a baseball scholarship. Made me real proud to go down there and finish down there and play baseball. So 7 of these sophomores, not only did they win it in '82, they won it in '83 and '84. So they had a lot of tradition here. And the juniors won it 2 times, but you seniors, you're the ones that started it, and you carried it on without a doubt. You know, to overcome where everybody in South Carolina thought Bamberg was going to be the team to win it, and overcome after losing down there in the first game, and you come back and fight back and then go 11 innings, that was the game of games, without a doubt. So I got a picture for all of you. I look a little young. I just want to say thank you for letting us be here. We really enjoyed it. We had a good time last night. We had a cookout before the football game, and then the facilities here are top notch. I'm really impressed, and thank y'all.
Well, as Matt kind of alluded to in the opening remarks, that was those 2 teams being honored was a perfect example of bridging the generation gap. And I'm so glad to be a part of bringing those teams back and let them have a reunion. I think it's really great, and that's true to the purpose of what we tried to do when we came up with this idea. We're going to go ahead and induct the actual class of 2015 now, and just to kind of tell you how it's going to go. Either Matt or myself will introduce someone who's going to actually induct the person in the Hall of Fame, and then we'll hand that person a plaque. And if that person wants to speak, they have an open mic to do whatever they want. So with that, the first person we're going to induct, I'm going to steal a little bit of Coach Muldrow's thunder, I think, and say a few words, if that's all right. Okay. I can honestly say it's a very big honor to induct Paul Shealy. When my grandfather passed away, which anybody that knows me knows that rocked my world, the first person to find me was Paul Shealy. And that means the world to me. So it's always good when there's a personal touch of these things, I know, but it's always been a lot to me because I never actually played for him. He was assistant principal here during the last 2 years of my high school days. And he's just somebody that always kept up with me. He loaned me some Civil War books to read. I went on to be a history major, so hey. So that's just a relationship I'm glad I kept up over the years. And with that, I'll bring on Coach Eddie Muldrow to induct Paul Shealy.
Thank you for allowing me to introduce and recognize Coach Paul Shealy. I want to read a little bit about his accomplishments, so bear with me. He was a head girls basketball coach in 1977-78. For everyone here, we just heard Coach Sullivan talk about it, but Coach Sullivan decided to retire from basketball that year. And Coach Sullivan has probably more retirement trophies than anybody. Coach Shealy only did it 1 year, and I think Coach Sullivan took back over. He was also the head track coach here at Chapin High School for 15 years, from 1978 to 1992. During that time, he was selected Region Coach of the Year. Y'all need to cut the lights back on. Remember, I'm not 28. He was the Region Coach of the Year in 1982, 85, thank you, 89 and 90. So all those with missing some hair and gray hair, you know what I'm talking about. But the thing that stands out in my mind about his career as a track coach, in 1986, he took a young man to the state track meet that won the shot put. But he was running in the 100-meter dash that day too. Not many shot putters win the event and then go over and run the 100, but Randolph Bowers was that young man. In football, he worked at Chapin High School for 15 years. 77-78, he was with the B team. 79 and 80, he was with JV. In 1981, I came here to try to take over a little bit for Coach Cecil Woolright. And I do emphasize try. We introduced all the coaches. We met one by one in the old library. I know that's Media Center today, but it was a library then. Coach Shealy and I met. We talked a little bit, and I said, "Do you think you could coach offensive line?" His reply was, "I'll do whatever you want me to do." And that was the type of person he was. I'd like to share a couple of stories about what he did to help us as an assistant football coach. A lot of times assistants never get the credit. It's always the head coach gets his name in the paper, the quarterbacks get their name in there, the linebackers, but never the offensive line coach. We were getting ready to play Woodruff in 1982. They had a quarterback by the name of Tony Rice, pretty good high school player. Pretty good college player. Well, the game was tough. It went down to, we got some people here in the audience that played in that game. Joe Shelby, and Joe he gave me $20 to mention his name. Through a pass to Paul Dye, and Paul gave me $25. And we got down inside the 5. Coach Gene Teal was up on the press box. He said, "Coach, we're on the 1. So I looked at Coach Shealy. I said, 35 man. He said, "We can do it." The problem, we weren't on the 1 yard line. It was 3 seconds on the clock. And somehow another guy here, Kent Hunia, was our left tackle. He told me today he weighed 320, but he only weighed 300 then. So we gave it to a young man by the name of Michael Kaufman, who the year before wasn't eligible for football because he was legally blind in one eye. And Mike Dillon, our trainer, didn't want to trust his life with letting him play football. But he finally got a doctor in Charleston to let him wear, I call it, what was a big basketball? Lou Alcindor goggles and a special face mask so he could play football his senior year. He was a fullback, the scorer behind Ken Honey. But I think we were on the 3 or 4 yard line. I'd have probably called a pass, but I know that. But Coach Shealy said we can make it with 35 men. So those who played probably remember 35 men. We go back to Woodruff in 1985. Tony Rice is still there. We can't shake him. We play, and well, going back to Sunday, Coach Sullivan usually go and get us some snacks from the concession stand right in this room. So the Booster Club didn't make much money on concessions over here. But we ate good on Sunday night while we were working. But Coach Shealy said, I got an idea. Woodruff played 2 defenses. They played a 50 defense and a 4-3. A 50 defense, the big guys are playing on the tackles. A 4-3, the big guys move in on the guards. We had big guys at tackle. Rich Sweet was 6'5", about 240. Coach Wessinger, he gave me $30 to mention his name. He was the other tackle. Coach, how slender do you want to be? 235? There you go, 235 the other tackle. Our guards was Sonny Honey Bundrick, 5, if you stood on his tiptoes, 5'7", 170. Cass Gibson, probably 5'8", 160. Coach Shealy says on Sunday, said, what do you think about let's let them switch on certain plays? I said, switch? He said, yeah. We'll try to put big on big and little on little. I said, well, if you can make it work, we'll try it. Because Woodruff was an extremely talented football team. Well, in the scout report, we had plays with a little asterisk beside it, and that way the guards and tackles would switch. So we looked like a well-orchestrated dance team on every play. The 2 linemen would stand up, and if bigs were inside, bigs slid over and played guard. And so they switched spots on both sides. And it worked. Normally, that never gets in the paper. But tonight, it's here in front of everybody who knew why we won the game. We wouldn't have had a chance. The last thing, Coach Shealy, when I first met you, you said you didn't really know what your middle name was until you went to college. Because you had a high school coach that usually added an adjective to describe you or your middle name. But my wife says this is a mixed company, we won't mention that middle name. So congratulations, Coach Paul Shealy. You touched so many lives here at Chapin High School. And thank you for all you did as a teacher, coach, administrator for all the people, most of all the people in this room. Thank you so much.
Mike Slice is really all you have to say. That's all I need to say is Mike Slice. There's really no other embodiment other than a Woolbright around these parts that can be classified as a living legend other than Mr. Hip over here to my right. Mike Slice, growing up, Mike was my uncle, and he was always a big man, but he had the bigger heart and the muscles on his body. He started here, and like everybody back in the 70s, started out in grammar school, but he started in high school, started lettering in 1971. You can see behind me the letters that he accomplished. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure it's some kind of a record. 21 varsity letters over 6 years. He had 6 football letters, 6 track and field letters, 4 baseball letters, 5 basketball letters, all conference in track, all conference in basketball, 2 football state championships, played for 4. The best athlete I've ever known in my lifetime. Coach Sullivan, over here to my left, first time I met Coach Sullivan, I was in the 6th grade coming up to play B-team football. My name was not AJ, it was, you're Mike Slight's nephew. And that's forever, I'll remember that first. And I played in a band some years after high school, and we somehow ended up at the Gilbert Peach Festival in like 2005. And after we commenced playing and we played our show, got done playing and introduced each of the band members, we put forth that we were from Chapin. And I saw a gentleman walking towards the stage, and we got off, and he came and shook my hand. He says, "Do you know Mike Slice?" I'm in Gilbert. And I said, "Well, yes, sir." He's like, "Mike Slice is a living legend. I played baseball at Gilbert, and I tell you what, there was always a little Slice, and he'd get on base, and here comes big old Mike Slice to knock them all in." And so anywhere I'd go, there was always a Mike Slice story. Ryan, my cousin, Adam, my cousin over here, 3 of us walked through these halls as Mike Slice's kin for our entire high school careers. There's really not much that I can say in words that describe Mike Slice's character, his commitment to the community, and his love, not only for his family at home, but his family here at Chapin, through his dedication and service in the Eagle Club, 30 years of coaching for the Recreation Commission, basketball, baseball, football. There's not a soul that entered this high school in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s that didn't know or wasn't touched some way in the athletic field by Mike Slice. I'm going to save my breath. Coach Sullivan asked if he could say a few things in regards to Mike Slice, and I'd like to invite him up here and say a couple things before we hand the plaque over to Mike's wife. In my lifetime, there was never a bigger legend in sports and in dedication than Mike Slice. And I want to hand over the mic to Coach Sullivan here.
I want to tell y'all when we won the first state championship, we won 12-6. And the thing I remember more than anything is, Roger Woolbite, wait a minute, where's Roger? I'm thinking the Woolbite was over there. Roger Woolbite ran a 4-yard run, and we went ahead 12-6. And believe it or not, he hurt his right arm. I don't know what's the matter with him. He hurt his right arm in the start of the 4th quarter, and we had to pull him out, and he was the monster man. And when Roger was out a little bit, they started driving down there. It was 12-6 now. They're going down for the touchdown right at the end. And Roger came back in. I put him in as a defensive back. I knew probably he couldn't play anymore, but just him coming back on the field, we get him going. Well, they did, and Theodore Stone recovered a fumble on the 22. Well, Mike Slice and a guy named Pete Bunder came in there, and they went 57 yards running the ball and ran out that last 4 minutes and something of the game. They ended up on the 11-yard line. If we could have had a little more time, we might have beat them 20-6. We ran the time out, and I want to tell y'all, you're talking about tough. Mike Slice ran some tough plays against a good Bamberg Earhart team to win that first championship, and I'll never forget that. But Mike, just like he said, had a heart of gold. And he scored a touchdown in varsity in the 7th grade. He weighed 190. When he graduated, he probably weighed 198. In the 7th grade of the senior year. But he would give you the shirt off his back. And I love him, and I miss him a lot. And his wife, Sharon, one of the best cheerleaders we ever had, and also was real good at everything at Chapin High School. that she represents and everything. We appreciate all the peoples that stayed J to him. Thank you.
Accepting this year's award for Mike Slice is his wife, Miss Sharon Slice.
I'm just gonna say a few things. I know y'all, the ones that are here that came to see Mike, wish it was him up here, and so do I, but God had different plans. But I know that he's watching down, and he would be humbled right now because he lived a life he loved sports, and he luckily had 2 sons that he was able to coach, and like I said, 30 years of coaching, and he was a great fella, and thank you everybody for coming. Thank you.
Well, one of the themes of the night, it seems to be families. We've talked about the Derricks, the Slices, some of the Wessingers, but really one of the families when I leave out of this town, and folks from around the state always talk about, is the Woolbright family. Matt, you're from Chapin. Do you know the Woolbrights? Well, of course I know about the Woolbrights. I mean, everybody knows about the Woolbrights. Of course, the field here at Chapin is named after Cecil Woolbright. At this time, we're going to induct Mr. Roger Woolbright, and Vaughn Wessinger is going to come up here and induct Mr. Woolbright.
Thank you. I want to thank Ms. Ruth for giving me a call to do this. First of all, I want to congratulate all the inductees tonight. That is just a great honor. And I got to give thanks to Pam. I tell you, me and Pam grew up since we were that little together, and I guarantee you there's not one varsity men's basketball player that would play her one-on-one. I'm serious. I used to play basketball with her behind the house one-on-one, and I didn't stand a chance. But anyway, Roger and I go way back, long way back. We shared a lot of memories. He's a good friend. They moved here, I think, 1968. Somewhere in there. And besides being a teammate, classmate, and we did a lot of things. We got hunting, fishing. I'll never forget one time we was behind Charlie Sheila's house, where you live now, hunting squirrels. I said, I'm getting him. I know I'm getting him. And we finally got him, and I think we were late for basketball practice, and I think Coach Teal took care of us on that.
Appreciate you taking the blame.
Yeah. The days we played slam dunk basketball on Bob Shealy's driveway, I think then it was maybe a 8-foot goal. We might could do 5 foot now. I don't know. But Roger hated to lose. He was a competitor. I seen him and Rex get in some altercations, and he was a hard-working man, and all the results showed. He was a great athlete, great person, a great friend. At quarterback, Roger led Chapin Eagles to the first state football championship in 1973. He also led the team to the conference championship in 1971 with a 10-0 record, and also in 1973. As a senior in football, he scored 13 running touchdowns and passed for 13 touchdowns. He was named as one of the top 5 high school athletes in the Carolinas. He was selected in the 1973 Shrine Bowl team, named to the Prep All-American football. He was All-State defensive back in 71, 72, and 73, and All-State quarterback in 73 as well, and AA State back of the year in 73. He led 5 years in football and track, 4 years in basketball. In basketball, he was the leading scorer in the Columbia area in both his junior and senior year, winning conference in both years. He went to the University of South Carolina. He led it 3 years with them. I know he was my quarterback, and the 4 years I played, and he was the best triple option quarterback that I ever knew. I think because our orange was so dark, if we didn't have a stripe around the ball, they'd still be looking for it. But Roger, I'm proud of you, and I want to present this award to you, and congratulations.
too. It's always good to get back home. Chapin's always been my home. I've been living in Arkansas probably for the last 28, 29 years. And it's always good to come back, see my mom, my family. I appreciate my wife and my girls, my grandsons, and my mom for all being up here tonight, making that 12-hour drive from Arkansas and from Memphis all the way back up here. Whenever I graduated, I went to coach with one of the coaches that actually beat me when I was in high school, Melvin Baltnight. He was at Barnwell. And whenever I went there, one of the first things he did is, Vaughn, he had like a highlight reel of when we played Barnwell where they actually beat us. They actually stopped Vaughn and myself. You know, we ran the same play 2 years in a row. They stopped the same play. The way we started out our football season is he brought our teams in and he had this highlight reel. And it was the Chapin and Barnwell game. And of course, you know, back then they had a little button. It was 8 millimeter film. And he'd have our whole team in there, you know, and our coaches, and he'd be talking about the game, and he'd be show that play over and take that little button, and he would show, it would like go forward, you hit the button, it'd back up. So it showed Vaughn, you know, in the line, running that option to dive across there, and he kept hitting that button. You could see Vaughn, you could see that line and doing that. You know, and all the guys were getting a big kick out of it, because, you know, it was Coach Woolbright back in the day when he was playing, was really a long way from now, but it wasn't that late back then, so. But he was a good coach. But he always wanted to know, you know, what did we do at Chapin that made us such a great program, a great school, and have so many, you know, great athletes and players. And I just told him, one, you know, it was the coaches, both of them. We had my dad, we had Coach Sullivan. Dad was kind of he could kind of give you a look, and he kind of was the enforcer. You know, he wanted to make sure that you knew what you were supposed to do. He watched a lot of film, and he knew where you were supposed to be, when you were supposed to get there, and he pretty much kept you focused. I will say this, I do remember, I was just thinking about it, I remember my first play that I ever quarterbacked on the varsity for my dad. And that was that we were at Whitmire. Mervyn Shealy was actually the starting quarterback, and he got hurt early in the game. We were at Whitmire. Of course, he got hurt. You know, I was over on the sidelines. We found out where we were at. So we were on about the 45. I saw Daddy looking around. So I ran up to where he was at. He looked at me. Daddy used a lot of psychology also. A lot of psychology. So he was looking at me. I think my eyes were probably about that big around. So he was trying to calm me down a little bit, and he said, Roger, what are we going to run? I looked back up there at him again and said, great, let's run quarterback sneak on 45 yards. I looked at him, I went in, we was on the 45, I went there and called the huddle. My teammates said, quarterback sneak on, go. Everybody just kind of looked again. So we went out and we ran quarterback sneak. I think he thought I was a little nervous, so we ran quarterback sneak. I think everybody on that Whitmire team put their hands on me on that play. It was like a crush play. So that was my first play. But I told him that we had good coaches. Coach Sullivan was our motivator. As you can tell, he could start out real slow talking to you about something, but as the game went along, when he started, he was like up here at this level. You could just feel the electricity. And I will say just one thing about Coach Sullivan. There's a lot of little things, but this is a good one. Daddy, we were playing, I think that was our first, we were playing Fort Mill. I think that was the first playoff game. And Daddy, you know, they have to take the film in and get it. He'd get back. They used to play a lot of film. After the game, he came back, or I think it was on Saturday. He gets back on Saturday. We were sitting down there eating. He said, you know, I took a quick look at the film, and I noticed you were blitzing an awful lot. The linebackers were blitzing a lot. I said, really? He said, yeah. And I said, well, it's probably because every time I look over there at Coach Sullivan, he was so excited. We had, you know, he would do this for the linebackers, this was for the right linebacker, this was for the ends coming in. Every time I looked at him, he was doing this. So I was just sending them in every time. If I saw, I said, yeah, we're going, he's doing this over here. Let's go get him. That's kind of the way he kept us motivated all the time. I mean, he was always
electricity. He kept it fired up. And that's what I told our coach. And I said the second thing we did at Chapin is we had good players. And we had good, not just players, but we were friends. You know, we look out for each other on the field and off the field. You know, we did a lot of the little things. You know, we never had to look for us to be on practice on time. We were always there early. You know, we didn't do a lot of the cutting up and stuff, you know, because we had those two coaches watching us. You know, you get a look from dad, you need to get out there and get ready to start playing. But we had good players. You know, Isaiah, Jerry, you know, our senior year, man, I run an option, something, pitch it out there. I knew we had some yardage. I just had to maybe look good. I could pitch it, they would go with it. But we had good players, and we backed each other up. We always had their backs. You know, everybody had each other's back. You know, playing ball, you're always going to get tired. You're always going to get hurt, banged up. Well, whenever somebody did, he was always picked up. Somebody patted him, got him going, and got us going again. The third thing is our school and our community. One thing my dad always told us was, he said, when you're out there playing, you're not just playing for yourself. You're not just playing for the football team. You represent the school. You represent the community. You represent the family. You know, all your families, the players and stuff. And that's the way we looked at it. And I think that was one of the reasons that we had good teams and we won a state championship is we all played together, but we all played for Chapin. Chapin will always be my home. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Our next inductee I first learned about talking to, I was getting to that point. Our next inductee I first learned about seeing him in the trophy case out here outside of the cafeteria and seeing this hair. I later learned more about him by talking to actually Coach Sullivan in the weight room. I remember actually sitting by the squat rack talking to Coach Sullivan about two backs that we had here at Chapin at one time. One of which played at Nebraska, the other played at Indiana, and the two actually met each other on a nationally televised game in which the announcer called Chapin Chapin. So we finally got some attention for that. But to talk a little bit more about Mr. Jerry Bowers, Coach Sullivan's going to come on back up here and get some more exercise.
And I want to tell you one thing about Jerry Bowers. I came in the cafeteria one day and they were all over there just having a good time laughing. And I went over there and they had a program from football. And they had Coach Sullivan up there with an afro. I want to tell you, I look better. They were laughing their ears off, and we had a good time that day. It was all right with me. That's the most hair I've ever had. I appreciate that. Before I start, though, I would like to thank Justin and Matt. I'm telling you, they were good linemen for us, and they've done a super job with everything, and we appreciate them at Chapin High School for all of this and for everything they've ever done. We certainly appreciate that. Now, talking about when Roger was up here just then, we won 20-0 at Whitmire. I was proud of that young man. He was a little fella, but he did a great job that night. He did everything we asked of him, and I mean, we scored 3 times, and they had some good scat backs. You know that we shut them down, and that was real good. I appreciate that. Now he mentioned where's old Isaiah Hill at? Where's old Hill? Okay. I want to tell y'all one thing about, I love state championships, and y'all know everybody does. But on the second state championship, you know, we won 28-15 at Bamberg Earhart, and that's not the game I really remember. I remember the Wren game the week before. We would never have been in the state finals. Isaiah scored 4 touchdowns, and what I learned about Isaiah, there must have been like 11 seconds to go in the first half, and the score was 14-14. And we said, I knew that we could shut them down in the second half because they had Joe Louis Haygood. Y'all know from Marin, those Haygoods are good athletes now. But I felt, I saw something, and I knew the second half they weren't going to score a point. So I didn't want to make a mistake because we were like on the 43-yard line. I didn't want to make a mistake. So told Coach Wilbur, I said, just tell Isaiah to run around a little bit, get those 11 seconds, and we'll go in 14-14, and we'll come out, shut them down, and we'll win. Well, Isaiah went to the right, and then he came back to the left. And then he went 57 yards for a touchdown. You know what I told him at halftime? That's the way you waste time. And you get 6 or 7 more points. And he scored 4 touchdowns, 1 more in the second half. We beat them 26-14, and that was a good Ren team too. I mean, they were good. And that Joe Louis Haygood, he was mean. But let me tell you, the second half, y'all be proud of our defense. They got 6 yards the whole second half, and I think they got 1 first down. We shut Jim down. Now you're talking about, I want to talk about Jerry. But I want to tell you, Vaughn Westsinger was up here, and he was number 31. Let me tell you, Vaughn will tell you, for 2.5 years, he was a mean linebacker and a fullback. But when we went to Clover his sophomore year, there was a big old tackle over there, and he introduced Vaughn to something called football. And Vaughn will tell him, I know at halftime of that game, I said, Vaughn, you kind of on roller skates out there, aren't you, baby? You know, that big old guy was eating them alive. But you know what? The next week and all that, he came around, and you talking about one of the best players we ever had. And I still say, Vaughn, you scored down at Barnum. It was sideways, but that ball was across the line. Sorry, but they did not call it. You know. But we just had some super people in the past. And old Jeffrey Tucker's here, and I remember Dutch Ford was scared to death to play us after 2 years as a freshman and sophomore. We beat them, and Kim recalled and says, we need bigger crowds down there. My God, the Chapin people had crowds everywhere. He just didn't want to play Jeffrey Tucker 2 more years because he already lost to him 2 years, you know. And big old Andy Williams is coming up here in a few minutes. Big number 44. And I'll tell y'all a story about him. When we got his basketball shoes in one day, I looked at those things. That thing was like a small coffin. He's got 18 shoes, 18 feet. And I said, my God. And he was a great basketball player for him. We should have been a good tight end. You know, that's right. But anyway, we could just go on about the athlete. Now, I don't usually have notes, and I apologize. Jerry Bowers did so much, I can't memorize all that. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then I'll tell you a few particular instances about Jerry I remember especially. I'll just tell you all this. As far as a nose guard, we've had 2 nose guards. Well, one other guy was close to Jerry. Jerry was the best. Well, we remember Ron Sultan. And Ron Sultan, I tell you, and Jerry, all I had to tell Jerry was, Jerry, we got to have a fumble. And he would jump across the line, slap the quarterback's hand, and there would be a fumble. I mean, 5th grade quarterback, as they came against us, he would destroy us. But remember, he had to play offense too. And I mean, he played, I was going to see how he could do the whole thing that he did, but he was a super athlete for him. Now, in football, he led with 5 years, state champs in 1974, all conference 1974-75, 1974 was a defensive lineman. He was the Columbia area leading scorer in 1975 with 26 touchdowns and 5 two-point conversions. Now y'all know Coach Wilbur didn't like to kick the ball. Well, his philosophy was if you get 1 out of 2 on a 2-point conversion, that's just like kicking twice. And let me tell you, I'll tell you all this. You know I'm a mathematician. He got 82% of the conversions. Coach Wilbright came out way ahead. And speaking of the Wilbrights, I just want to tell you one thing. I don't know this. Marty was the quarterback for 2 years. And the only reason he wasn't the quarterback for 4 years is he was at Cardinal Newman. We'll forgive him for that, for 2 years. But he came in '68 for 2 years. Roger was for 4 years, and Rex was for 2 years. Their combined records as quarterbacks, 86 and 8. 86-8. They averaged almost 11 wins a year and 1 loss while they quarterback here at Chapin High School. And Ms. Lee Woolbright, I tell you, you can't find a better woman than that over there. And Coach Cecil Woolbright, let me just tell you this. I lost my father when he was young, and he was like a father to me. And I'll never forget that man. He is super. And I love the Woolbrights, but Coach Woolbright, I'll never forget him. I think about him anytime I'm sitting in a chair at night time. He was just a Superman. And I'll never forget that man. Let me tell you more about Jerry, and I'll apologize. Also, he rushed 215 times for 1,104 yards. And as a mathematician, that's 5.1 yards per carry. And that's as a junior. He was the leading receiver also, which is unusual, you know, being 479 yards and 9 more touchdowns. He had 78 total tackles. I depended on him, you know, on defense too. He was 25-1, you know, the 2 years, you know, with 74 and 73. And I'll just tell you all this, in basketball, he led it in 1974 and 75. I think, hey, we know Bowers is going to have number 21. We know the Wolfpack is number 11. In basketball, I think you were number 35, weren't you? I believe you were. I remember that. In track, he led it, let's see, 5 years. 5 years in track. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Jerry, though. In the state championship game, he got 81 yards in 14 attempts. This is against Bamberg Earhart. And we got ahead on 14-0, and Bamberg, we just stopped them the whole game except for 4 or 5 minute interval, and they scored 15 points, and that was 15-14. But we came back and won, and Jerry scored late in the third quarter, and that got us to 28, and Bamberg kind of gave up after that because our defense, the way they were playing, they weren't going to score anymore, and we corrected that situation. Let's see. What people don't understand, the game I remember more than anything, y'all know who our rivals were in the old days. I'm sorry, they're not quite like that nowadays, but it was Mid-Carolina. And I guarantee you one thing, in 1975, we had won 26 games in a row. We were 26-0, regular season games. And Mid-Carolina has 14-2 with 5:32 to go in the game. 5:32 to go in the game. See that young man right there? And there was another guy named Pete Bundles. Pete Bundles was Mr. Inside. There's Mr. Outside right there. And they took that, Mid-Carolina, we forced the 5-yard punt. And they took it down there and scored. And now it's 14-8. And the defense just racked them up. And they had a short punt. We took it down there. And Mid-Carolina will never know this, but we had 12 people on the field when we scored that last one. I remember telling Coach Woolbright, 4 came off and 5 went on, Coach. And but let me tell you, he ran an unbalanced line and a full backfield. The official didn't know what was happening. But anyway, we scored, and then Rex hit Tay Rucker back in the back of the end zone. And I'll tell you one thing, we beat old Mid-Carolina 16-14 with about 8 seconds to go, and I loved it. But I'm telling you, and we went on to win 3 more after that, 30 in a row. And this young man right here, he's truly one of the greatest backs we've ever had. And off the field, he would shake your hand, pat you on the back and all that. When he put that uniform on, God help your soul. Now, y'all, he'll tell you, he got hurt his senior year. And I mean, we've lost a lot of people, you know, in the past years. And Jerry was our main man. And I remember when he took those shoulder pads off, and I saw that it was a collarbone, wasn't it? I think it was a collarbone. You know, I could tape a lot of things, but it's hard to tape a broken collarbone. But guess what? He came back and would beat Mid-Carolina. I guarantee you. But I'll let him come up in there, but let me just tell you one thing. One of the greatest people that ever put on a uniform for Chapin High School, Jerry Bowers. Coach, you forgot one thing. And that one thing you forgot was that Hip scored and ran 4 or 5 touchdowns, but the following we had worse shows, and I had 5 touchdowns. Let's get that part straight. But first I want to get up here and thank the committee, because I think this was way past due. We had some great athletes that came through here. I want to thank God, because there was no way I could have made it without God. You know, my sister reminded me a couple weeks ago that she was writing up something for the church to let them know that I was going to the Hall of Fame. I was in an accident at 13 and a half years old, with my brother John C., my brother Mike, my brother Ralph, and 2 girls who was in the car. We was riding deep, but we had an accident, and I remember breaking my leg. I didn't know my pelvis was broken. I remember my leg was broken, but I didn't remember my pelvis was broken. I stayed in the hospital about 2 months. When I got to the hospital, I had a cast up this leg, around this side, and half of this one. So they had to pull me around the tin wagon just to get outside to get some fresh air. But I didn't know that the doctor said I wouldn't be able to play sports. They didn't tell me that until 2 weeks ago. To get past all of that, I want to thank all the coaches, teammates, my teachers. I don't want to miss nobody. And we had some of the best fans that you can ever ask. You know, every game we go to, the stadium was packed with our fans. And that's one thing I always remember, that we always had great fans. Coach Woodbright, one of the greatest coach ever. I don't care what nobody say. You know, I went to college at University of Indiana. Lee Corso was my coach. He asked me one day, he said, "Who's the best coach you ever played for?" I said, "Cecil Woodbright." And he looked at me and he walked off. But Cecil Woodbright was one of the best coaches, and you can't mention Coach Woodbright without mentioning Coach Sullivan. So they went hand in hand. And I see all these coaches out here today, and I'm thinking, you know, did we have more coaches back then? All I know is Coach Woodbright and Coach Sullivan. That's all I know. So if we had some more coaches back there, I don't I'm sorry. But Coach Woodbright was one of those coaches that, you know, until you played that we won that state championship, we were undefeated. We won a state championship the year before. Next year we went undefeated. And every game, Hip and I, Pete, we get back there and we score touchdown after touchdown. After the game, coach said, it was okay. It's all right. You know, you run the score 30, 40 to 6, and Coach Woodbright would say, you know, it was okay. It was okay. I said, man, what is it going to take for this coach to realize, what it's going to take? And one day, when we won the state championship, you saw that big smile, and he beat you up, and you know, that's what it takes. Man, that was a great feeling, just to see Coach smile. But, you know, when I got to college, I realized that you got to have an agent, you know. But I had an agent when I was in high school and didn't realize it. I had an agent in high school and I didn't realize it. The reason why I said I had an agent was when I was in class, I had this particular teacher that would, on Fridays at game time, she would let me lay my head on the desk and she would dare anybody to touch me. You just touch him. That's my agent, you know what I mean? When I got to the University of Indiana, everybody in the athletic department knew this lady. Everybody in the athletic department. Every day I show up at the athletic department, they would say, this lady called. She called. She want to know how you doing. So that's my agent. And the agent I'm talking about is the only agent, and that's Miss Ruth. That's my agent. When you say you can get up and speak, I really want to get up and speak because, you know, Ms. Ruth has always been there for me, every day I show up at the athletic department, she's always there, always calling, She checking on me to make sure my grades and make sure that's every day. She knew everybody in the athletic department. And so I couldn't cut classes. She called me, you know. If I cut a class, she knew I cut class. She called me and said, Jerry, you didn't go to class today. Don't do that, you know. But the biggest thing that really stick with me and really helped me to help others was that Miss Ruth, you know, I wasn't, my sophomore year, I drove my car to school. And, you know, to travel back and forth from Indiana, you know, I come home like on holidays or something like that. But Miss Ruth was the one that, she sent me a credit card in the mail. A credit card. Who would give you your credit card? With my name on it. And she said, Jerry, you use it, whatever you want to buy. All that credit card, I never bought anything other than gas. She would always call me and say, Jerry, go get you something from the store, get you some shoes, get you anything, anything. But that lady said, you can buy anything you want to buy. But all I used it was when I came home for Thanksgiving or Christmas and bought gas, fuel, back and forth. I showed up come home for one holiday, and she called me up. She said, Jerry, don't you forget to stop by my house on the way out of here. She said, your credit card is going to expire. You need to stop by here and pick up your credit card. I tell you, I love that lady. I love her. Miss Ruth, you got to come up here. You know, Coach, I got to get back to Coach Sullivan. When I was coaching at Irmo. I got the job at Irmo to coach. And I had a certification I had to pass. And it was math, you know. And it's been a while since I've been through some math and stuff, so I said, well, let me call Coach Sullivan. And maybe he can kind of help me out a little bit there. So I called up Coach Sullivan, and I thought we might spend like, you know, maybe a couple of days together, you know, and try to come up with, I had to have this certification. And man, I was at the last of it. So I showed up and met Coach Sullivan, and he sat down there, he looked at this thing, and he said, Jerry, he said, you don't have to go and break it down like that. He said, just look at this, and if it looked like that, that's the right answer. He said, okay, you got it? He said, do this year, and you do this year. I said, Coach, you didn't tell me that in school. You do this, and you do this, and you look over here. If it looked right, that's the answer. Add it up, and that's the answer. I went, and I took that test, and I got the results. I passed it, just like that. Thank you, Coach. But there's another person here that I really want to thank, and that's Von Westsanger. I'd like you to stand up. I just want to say thank you to you. Appreciate it. Well, it gets down to my family. My family is what means a lot to me. My family. My father, John Allen Bowers, late John Allen Bowers, and Eleanor Bowers. If you know John Allen Bowers, he was one of probably, I would say, without a doubt, one of the best fishermen on Lake Murray. He's in the Hall of Fame up in the Chapin Town Hall, so he had to be something. My mom, you know, she would give you a shirt off her back. She was just that type of person, you know. If you showed up at her house, you was going to eat some fresh fish and whatever you want. If it wasn't on the table, she's going to fix it for you. One of the best family I could ever. I thought growing up, I was rich, you know. I really thought I was rich because, you know, they had 3 girls first, 3 girls, 2 years apart. Then my dad and mom had 7 boys. And then we end up with 1 girl at the end there. So she kind of screwed up the whole thing. There's 7 boys. But, you know, my family it means a lot to me, you know. And whenever I went off anywhere, I represent Chapin High School. When I went off to Indiana, I represent Chapin High School. When Hip and I played against each other, my goal when I first got to Indiana was, as a freshman, I said, well, if I can I take small goals. I wanted to just make the traveling squad because we were playing Nebraska that year and Nebraska. So you got to make the traveling squad in order to the first top 3 teams. So my goal was I look at all the guys and said, man, they're pretty good. But by the time it was time to go to play Nebraska, that first game, I was on the traveling squad. We went over to play Nebraska, and I saw those big guys, all of them looked like 7, 6, 7, 8, 7, 9, big guys, And then I saw a little Hip behind those big guys, and he run over us. He had 200-something rushing yards against us, But it didn't beat us that bad. But the next year, following year, he showed up at Indiana. We was like celebrities, 2 small boys from Chapin, and they always said Chapin, but I straighten them out. It's Chapin. It's Chapin. I'm Chapin. Chapin. We were able to take pictures and stuff together. And we had my athletic director, Mr. Ralph Floyd, was from here in Chapin too. So we all would take pictures and stuff together, and it was great. We had all week. It was about Hip and Bowers from Chapin, from Chapin, but I straight from Chapin. But when I talk about my family, I can't leave out my mother-in-law, Miss Drill over here. That's my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law. Some people got in-laws and some people got outlaws. I got the greatest in-laws ever. They're just like my mom and dad. They're the greatest ever. If anything I ever wanted coming up, I could always count on them. And great in-laws. But then I want to talk about my brothers and sisters. Like I said, it was 7 boys, 4 girls. I lost 4 brothers and 1 sister. But all the rest of my family here, the rest of them is here. I thought that the boys kind of started out with sports and stuff like that. But when I really look at it, who really started out in our family as a sport? My sister Ellen. She was playing basketball. And then she started driving a school bus and playing basketball. So my older brother, John Cease, started playing football and got him a school bus. So it kind of trickled on down the line. My brother Larry played, with Marty and got a school bus. And so it trickled down to Ralph. He played football and got him a bus. So you follow your family. So when I come along, so I say, hey, I got to play football too, and give me a bus. Brother Mike, he played football and got a bus. But Brother Ruben back there, he was the one that always would take it and come out in the field, punt the ball. He can punt the ball 70 yards, spare just. He said, improving, he can do it again, he'll do it again, and he'll do it again. And then he'll put his shoes on, go on the sideline and talk trash. But he proved to you he can do it. But my brother Chris, he's deceased, but he was a great running back here. Indiana picked him up, sent him to junior college for 2 years because we had a lot of talent there in Indiana at that time. But my senior year would have been his first year there. And what happened, they fired Lee Corso, and one of the coaches that recruited him took him to Illinois State. So he played at Illinois State, great running back, My sister Jackie, she played basketball, tennis, and whatever it took, she was part of it too. And she went off to the University of Aiken and played basketball on basketball scholarship. So it was a family. We had to really compete amongst one another. If we can beat them guys out, my brothers and my sisters, because if we can beat those guys out, then we good. We can beat everybody else. We took care of them, each other. We was good. But I just want to say that, I'm really proud of really being here. Thanks for everything. But, you're thinking, I'm going to really forget my wife. I remember my wife was my cheerleader. She's a cheerleader here at Chapin, and
Baby, come on up here. Come on. I got to finish this thing with my wife because I got to finish this with her. This was my cheerleader. You know, every time I would score a touchdown, and all the cheerleaders done stop cheering, I look over there, my girlfriend was still cheering. One game I promised her, I said, look, I'm gonna score you 5 touchdowns in the playoffs. You know, that was crazy. But you know, like I said, against worse shows, I scored that 5 touchdowns. So I got engaged to her when I went off to Indiana. I said, look, if we still together in 4 years, I'll marry you. Well, when I graduated from Indiana, in July the 4th, I was married, you know? So it didn't take long. But this is my wife, and I love you.
All right.
Thanks for everything. My kids here, Latif, and my daughter, Erica, and my grandson, and all my families here, my nephew, nieces. Wendy, I can't leave you out because you was part of our family. You grew up there too. She went to Irmo. I mean, she was here when mom moved to Irmo. So she went to Irmo. She became a good basketball player because she had to come out and play with us. You know, she couldn't shoot like, you know, close. We made them all shoot outside, like Jackie. We made them all shoot outside. They couldn't come up under the goal because the brother would take care of them. So I just want to take this opportunity. And my brother Chris, that passed away, his wife, and his sister-in-law is here. I want to thank you. And my boss, man, I can't leave him out. Larry, that's my boss, and I really appreciate you coming here. Thank y'all for everything, and this is a great, you're on the right track. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, we've been talking about some legendary coaches tonight. Well, one is a legend here at Chapin High School, and that's in the sport of basketball here in this very arena. I want to bring up Coach Rogers right now to induct Andy Williams.
Thank you for having me up here. I'm going to be brief because WF's still got to go again with Andy. Something like that, you know, truly amazing. Made people think that I knew what I was doing out there when they watched Andy playing and everything, you know. But what I liked about him the best, I mean, his teammates loved him. When he forgot his jersey at the Abbeville game, Bobo gave him his jersey to go. You remember that? Number 40? Yeah, Andy was always number 44. Andrew Barnett Williams. Imagine if they had a 3-point shot when Andy was playing. Lord have mercy. And Jackie, I've got to thank you, and I got to thank Jerry and Chris and Bobo and all them, because you're the ones on those pickup games that made him tough over in the yard and everything. Yeah. But if he played over at Bobo's house, it's over on Old Lexington Highway. There's a goal there. And what Andy did that people don't realize, he gave us so many more possessions because it's something that you can't teach. He could block shots and keep the ball in play where we could get it or he could get it. And I know he learned it over at Bobo's because if you swat it, it'll go out in Old Lexington Highway and it'll get in trouble and everything doing that. Yeah. But in the 50s and the 60s, when I was growing up, there was a singer, Andy Williams, that a lot of you old folks will remember. Moon River, Can't Take My Eyes Off You, and stuff like that. And there was also a TV show called The White Shadow. Some of y'all remember that. And those guys, after the game, they'd get in the shower, and they'd be singing. They'd be taking the shower, and they'd be singing. They sounded pretty good. Well, this group I had, holy moly, they get in the shower and everything, and they would just wail. I mean, it was awesome. Boy, Chris would be doing all this stuff, and Andy and Randy, you know, it was terrific, you know. And so Andy had a week where he scored 97 points in 3 games, 97 points and about 60 boards. We played Mid Carolina on Tuesday night, And boy, they were out for him because he'd been whipping up on them for years now, okay? So he's just doing great. So he had 17 points, 19 boards that game. We played Saluda on Friday. He dropped 40 on them with 20 boards. And then we had a snow game or a rain out or something against Ware Shoals. Now, Joe Pitt's coaching Ware Shoals. And Joe Pitt's a good friend of mine, went on to Union, I think, to win state championship at Union. And he drops 40 and 20 on them. It was really something. So he comes up to me after the game, and he says, man, he did it all tonight. I suppose he can sing too. And I said, yeah, I heard him in the shower, boy. He can sing. I tell you what, he can do all of that. Without saying anything else, to this day, after being here 39 years and being the basketball coach for 26, this is one of the best all-around big men we've ever had. He's right up there with Marty, Ben Anderson, my boy Billy Amick, Alex Wright, who's only 6'2", but played way bigger than that. But this guy is what started for me. Andy, I love you, and it's my pleasure to be able to do this, man. Thank you. Oh, you want me in there too? No, you hold it.
I'm going to be brief. I just want to say thank you to everyone that made this possible for me. I know Justin. I got on Justin's nerves probably half of the time when I found out that I was inducted. But anyway, I would like to thank my family and everyone that made this possible for me. Also, I have my son here, only one son. He's here. He came down from Aiken to be here with me. So, Desmond, would you stand, please? He's back in the back. One thing I always know when I played any sport, it was even I'm playing pickup outside by myself or with a person. Yes, I do have this award, but it's basically it's team. You know, there's no I in team. And he's not here. I don't think Alex, Metz, or Dennis Fricks is not here, but they reminded me of that about 3 weeks ago with our class reunion, that they passed me the ball. But I remember this day always, and this has got to be one of the best awards I have received. I mean, I have had quite a few in my journey from high school, college, and to professional. So I just want to thank everyone. Everyone that is here tonight, thank you. My family here, nieces and nephews that are here. I'm gonna tell you who used to stay on my behind all the time. He's here now, Randy Reeves. Where you at, Randy? He always came to visit me when I was in college at USC Aiken. I can hear someone knocking on the door. I'm like, who is this? Randy, I'm here. I'm like, okay. But anyway, I'm going to end this on a good note. I just want to say thank you. My family, I love you for everything you have done. And the committee. Ms. Ruth, one thing Jerry left out. He left out that you also told us who to talk to, who to be with, what girlfriend you can talk to. But you know, I know all of that was good, though, and I appreciate everything you have done. So thank you, that's all I have to say.
Well, we're going to wind it on down, so we're going to bring back up Coach W.F. Sullivan. Man boss thing.
I promise y'all this will be the last time tonight. But before I get to Pam, I forgot a few things because. But one thing I want to tell you about, Jerry made the Shrine Bowl, and that's very important. And didn't you make the North-South too? Back then, see, you could make both of them in 1976, and he made both of them. And also, the thing I remember is Brigham Young. You know Brigham Young? That Holiday Bowl, he scored a touchdown, and Brigham Young was undefeated, and Indiana killed him. That was good, that's good. I just wanted to say that, I forgot to say that. Now, there are two women I want to mention right before Pam. Now, one of them is Miss Jimmy Root. And I'll tell y'all one thing, that woman has got more master's degrees from people down at the district office. She's done everything in the world in Chapin, I'll tell you that. And she's always been real dependable. She came in 1956, and she left under Coach Muldrow in 2006, is that right, Ms. Root? And that's 50 years, and then she's been selling tickets and stuff. She's been associated with this high school for 59 years at least. And I'm telling you, Ms. Ruth, we love you. Now, the other woman I wanted to mention was my wife. Look at her back there. No, what y'all don't know is she was the scorekeeper for these girls, and I'm telling you one thing, that woman could control the referees. And if they did not do what they were supposed to, she let them know it. And sometimes I've heard the officials, the second time they come to Chapin, say, did we do a better job tonight? Because she would stomp them, and she was the woman that would go in the dressing room, because I couldn't go in the girls' dressing room. And she would go in there and make sure everything was all right. And but I appreciate it. I love her to death. We've been married for 45 years, and I don't know how she's put up with me. But I certainly appreciate that. And the only other person I want to mention is Coach Eddie Muldrow. Now, y'all know Coach Cecil Woolbright, and let me just tell you all this. I coached for 30 years, and to be under Coach Cecil Woolbright and Coach Eddie Muldrow, two men with integrity, second to none. And I want to tell you all this, I'm a very fortunate individual. I did my best as assistant coach, but I'm telling you what, I love those two guys, and nobody at Chapin will ever be any better. There might be some that come close, but I tell you, those two in a row are super. Now I'm going to talk about the best girl basketball player that's ever played the game. I know sometimes people say, what are you talking about? But this girl, Pam Bostein, where is Pam? Oh. She was number 43, and I had all the boys coaches in the Midlands. They would call me up and say, can Pam Bostein play point guard for us? This is boys' teams now, and they said that over and over and over. And Pam never backed down from any of these 4A schools like Aiken, Orangeburg. We were a little old A school in AA, A and AA, and we played those 4A schools, and they thought they would come out there chewing that old bubble gum. I love those old big girls. They sit down, you know, the JVs play the first game, and they open the stands, and they look at our little girls, and they say, we're going to kill those little girls. And I just love it when we get out there and beat them 76-45. I mean, they just stomped them. And this girl right here would score the majority of the points. If I ever told her just, you know what I loved about Pam? She had that little gleam in her eye. When she had that little gleam in her eye, another victory for Chapin. And there was probably 7 times that somebody jumped on us pretty good, and I would say something to everybody, and right before they went back, I would look at Pam, she would look at me, she'd have that little gleam in her eyes, and I said, thank God. And she would go out there and do the job. The papers in Columbia, they called her Poetry in Motion. She had a fall-away jump shot that was one of the sweetest in the world. And she would make that shot all the time. She never quit hustling. When she would shoot the ball, you think she would watch it going up there, she would fire up there, get that second or third rebound and stick it back in. And she had that old jump shot.